All right, we got you. Awesome. We are here. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of you joining. I'm just going to pull something up here so I can see who's in here. All right. Okay. Well, welcome all of you. Thank you so much for coming and thank you so much for being here. I have had such a fun week this week. I hope all of you have had an amazing week. I want to hear in the chat. I haven't pulled all the reports yet, so I'm not sure like which days people have been here, which days, all those kind of things. So out of the people that are here, if you want to drop in the chat really quick, if you're available. Portland, Oregon. Hello. Drop in the chat which days you attended, or which day was your favorite day, or if you've made it on all the days. I'm just curious to see if there was one of the days that felt like was more value to you. And I'll probably send out a questionnaire in an email as well, just to get some of that feedback. But as I finished off the call yesterday, I'm really eager to hear from all of you. I'm really wanting to hear exactly what's going on and what is of value and what is needed out there. And I wanted to open up with that song today because first off, we should be having an adventure. The name of that song is Adventure of a Lifetime. And I just love the sound and everything of it. But I was thinking about that while I was watching that and just sitting back here dancing and just kind of like just feeling good today and excited about just the prospects of my business and things that I'm working on, even though there's challenges, right? And that despite where we're at in our business, all of us, right? Despite where we're at in our business, whether we've had a business for many, many years, or whether we're just barely starting, or whether we've just like completely pivoted from something else and we're going into something else. And you could be even somebody stepping away from baking more actively in the kitchen and trying to pursue something like content creation. I mean, there's so many different avenues that you can take in this industry and in this business. And it's something that I want to make sure all of you guys know as you're building this out. It doesn't have to just look like everybody else's path, right? Every single one of you, it's a choose your own adventure and figuring out what works best for you as you move forward and finding those that have done it before or have some insight behind it and trying to learn from them, right? Attend webinars like this. There's plenty of free courses and those kind of things to get you to a certain point. So utilize those as much as possible because there's so much great knowledge out there. And as a huge thank you, I just want to make sure everybody heard this. I don't know if everybody on here was on here yesterday. Just wanted to make sure. It looks like most of the names look familiar to me. But yesterday I made sure I let all of you know, anybody that attended any of the days, if it shows up on one of my attendee reports, so even if you logged in for 10 minutes or something, you'll be able to have the recordings of this. And the recordings of all the calls, as well as all of the presentations as well, access to be able to see those slides again, because there's a lot of the days that had a ton of information. So anyway, I've done enough of the recapping. Let's jump into questions. What questions do you guys have? Seriously, just start dropping them in the Q&A or in the chat, so I can start seeing some of those come in. And don't be shy either. You can also put anonymous on them too, if you want to. It's like, I don't need to know who asked the question. I really, in all honesty, like I'm here to help with what you guys have, like what each of you have going on in your business. And okay, there's a first one I can get going on the first one. Okay, so the first question was best ways to deal with burnout. Okay. So first off, I would suggest just it's first of all being aware of what is causing the burnout. Okay. Because sometimes we get into places where like, oh, we're just burnt out. I'm just burnt out on everything. I'm burnt out on everything. I'm burnt out on everything. And it becomes this excuse that we always say to ourselves. And I think that that is a huge, huge thing. And so being aware and stopping yourself, right? When you get into those, especially in the moments when you have that as a recurring thought, or you're just dead, you're just dead tired, and you're just like, I'm just burnt out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Whatever that burnout looks for you is going to look very different for different people. But what are the things that come up? Sometimes when I get burnt out, I notice myself indulging in certain things, like, for instance, scrolling social media, distracting myself away from the real problem. And so from a burnout standpoint is number one, when you get into those burnout places, as hard as it is, just try to be aware. And you don't have to dig this up one time, right? This is a process through your life every single day of knowing what those triggers are for you, right? I think I mentioned this the other day, and I hope this should be really helpful for this area. Actually, it's an area that Tony Robbins talks a lot about, and he talks about pattern awareness. And so he talks about that pattern, and he talks about, okay, are you in a pattern of burnout? Are you in a pattern of like, is this seem like it's happening all the time? What does that pattern look like? And so number one, it's recognizing the patterns, right? We all have our thought patterns. We all have our things that trigger us and push us in different directions. And so it's recognizing and being aware of the thought patterns and then the action patterns that follow up those thoughts, right? And oftentimes it's an inaction. And then that's where we get stuck in burnout because we're just like spinning on thoughts. And this is the whole reason I decided to go and get certified as a life coach back in 2021, because in 2019, 2020, I was like, I've been doing this bakery business for a long time, and I'm a smart guy. I know what I'm doing. I am a smart guy. I'm a hard worker, all these things. Why can't I figure this thing out? Why can't I do this? I'm working crazy, and I was burnt out multiple times and just in some of the lowest points I've ever been in my life. And realizing that a lot of it, pretty much most of it, was down to patterns and stories that I've been telling myself, or things that I'm making certain things mean about myself, that then get in these not good patterns. So, and of course, like, you're not going to get rid of all your thought patterns, because your brain is just natural, right? We're all humans. Brains, thoughts, they come. But if we can recognize, and then we can be aware of the thought patterns, we can then use those thought patterns and gain power over them rather than be victims of them. And then also we can create new patterns, and we can look at it and say, okay, here are the things, or the one thing that I'm going to work on this week that usually causes this for me. And so I know it's a kind of a vague question. On like a one-on-one coaching call, we could dive super, super deep into this. So please, like, if whoever asked this question, if you're interested in kind of looking into this a little bit further and what that looks like for you, those discovery calls that I've been talking about during the whole week are good for a couple reasons, right? It's a free discovery call. Each person can do one, and it's an hour-long call where we can sit down or on Zoom, and we can talk directly about what's going on in your situation, right? Because your burnout situation is going to be very different from the next person. It's going to be very different from mine. And so being able to sit down and really, if you're familiar with coaching or life coaching, a lot of this area where we get into burnout and thoughts and those things, when we're in a one-on-one session, it's essentially like you and me sitting on a couch looking at your thoughts and being able to look at them and really analyzing and being curious about why we think certain ways or why we fall into certain patterns. And then thus being able to help you become aware of what's going on so you know what to work on, right? Because part of recognizing and part of being aware is sometimes we have to have loved ones or coaches or people that we know, friends, to help us kind of through some of those things. Anyway, I don't want this Q&A to turn any salesy at all. I'm not trying to do that. I really want you guys to go with your journey. And if any of you are interested in coaching, please come talk to me. It's an open door, right? But I would never want to, I guess I want to put this across really quick. I would never want to pressure somebody into actually hiring me as a coach, because maybe it's not right for you right now, but maybe it's the perfect thing for you right now to make that kind of investment in yourself to help you grow and grow yourself personally and your business. Because this is interesting, because I am more of a business / life coach, because I work on everything, but because really when it all comes down to it, I could tell you everything, every single thing you would ever want to know about running a bakery business, and give you the resources, the tools, the everything that you would need. But at the end of the day, if the mindset around these things have not been like worked on and continually worked on into daily habits and those kind of things, you're going to get to a point where you are going to burn out, because you're not going to have those tools in your backpack, right, that you can use to help you all the way through. So hopefully that makes sense. And I also too, like, I don't have all the answers either. I just know what's worked for me in my situation, but that doesn't mean that works for you. But I do know the ways that different people think about it, and and I've talked to many people through burnout, and it's very interesting. Because sometimes we just make our burnout worse by just saying that we're in burnout. That's one thing I fall into. I fell into that super, super bad, where I would just say, oh, I'm just burnt out, just don't want to do anything. And then like 2 weeks would go by and I'm still burnt out and I haven't gotten anything done. Another week goes by, I still feel burnt out and I still haven't got anything done. So part of me was like, okay, maybe like I don't want to always feel burnt out, but if we get in that mind habit, we could get ourselves into a bad habit, onto that track. And then we're not going to like the results that we have in our life, because we're just having thoughts about burnout. And when you get into thoughts, our thoughts create ultimately the results in our life, because the thoughts create the emotions and the emotions cause the actions and the actions are towards the result. And so if those thoughts, those patterns are not in line with that, then, and it starts at a thought that creates the feeling of burnout, and it creates the opposite of a positive motivational feeling to help you take action in your business. That's the recognizing, that's the awareness, because until we recognize that, that's where that comes in. So that's my answer to that question. I know it's a long answer to that question, but it's very involved and it's a lot. It's basically what I've immersed my time in for like the last 3 years, in addition to building out all the things and writing down all my learnings from all my bakery businesses, all those kind of things. But in addition to that, I've been diving very deep into this life coaching, thought work, self-care area, because at the end of the day, that's what we all need to go on that journey eventually. Because like, do you want to open up a storefront bakery? Like, do you want to run it from home? What are your actual goals in your business, right? How to clarify, right? How to clarify, like, what are the goals? What do you actually want 5 years from now? What's your 5-year plan? And, or whatever that looks like, because that could look very different for all of us. And anyway, those are my thoughts for that one. We're going to go on to these other questions. Sorry. And seriously as well, feel free to keep dropping questions in here. Our numbers are just a little bit lower than yesterday, just a few people less. So seriously, those of you that are in here, like, we got 40 minutes left. it like you could probably each ask one question and we could probably get through all these. So if you do have a question, seriously think through the before I ask this next question. I'm just going to try to maybe help some thoughts come up because I really want to see some questions come up here. What is the one thing this week that maybe, I don't know, maybe I said that you were like, oh, I don't know if that's right, or oh, I don't know, I disagree, or what does that look like? Because that seems like an idea that I've never heard, or like I've tried that before and it doesn't work, Pete, kind of thing. Because I'd love to look at that. I'd love to look and kind of gain some additional knowledge from that as well. So if you have any other questions, feel free. But other than that, I am happy just to sit here and talk and give you my thoughts on some of these questions. So, okay, I'm going to quick drink of water and we're going to tackle these ones. Okay, so anonymous attendee, how do you overcome fear and self-doubt of what people think about your product? Okay. It is a tough one. And as you get more into business and you grow, like it gets not worse, but also like you could get that as a comment online or whatever. So yeah, it's real, right? It's real to have that fear and that self-doubt. But that goes back to something I was talking to the other day. And first off, I'll say, how do you overcome it? I don't know if you can fully overcome it, honestly. And if anybody out there has, please tell me your secret. But I feel like you can overcome it in the moment, right? Because and it's all about that pattern recognition we talked about before. Okay. So for instance, when somebody, well, first off, where does this come from? Is the fear and self-doubt based in something that somebody actually said? Or is the fear and self-doubt based on something that you think people are thinking about your product? Okay. Those are two very important distinctions, right? And there's two different things to tackle there. First off, from a what you can control standpoint, the only thing that you can control is you, right? The only thing you can control is you in the situation. So how you overcome that is by eventually getting yourself to a point where you don't care about what other people think about your product, right? And I know that's not easy. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. But at the end of the day, are people actually saying things about your product that they don't like, that you've heard before, that you're having a tough time tackling? Or is it just the thought of fear and self-doubt? Those are kind of my questions there, because it really depends on that. And I think I'm going to think on this for just one sec, because fear and self-doubt, where do those come from? Think about it for just a minute. Like when you're feeling fear, like let's say you're making a new cheesecake and you're giving it to your customers and you hand it to them and they leave with your box of cheesecakes, and you're sitting in your bakery or sitting at home and you have all this, you're feeling the fear, you're feeling the self-doubt, and you're thinking like, oh no, I hope that they like the cheesecake. Like, what if they're underdone? What if they're overdone? What if the crust is crunchy? What if the flavor's off? What if all these things, and what if I'm just not good at this anymore? And what if this batch is just horrible? And what if all these things, and our mind just go into what if. And in those moments, this is where the recognizing of the patterns come in. I'm like, this is going to go back to awareness again, is recognizing what that pattern is for you, like your thought pattern there. So what thought is causing the fear, right? So if it is like one of the thoughts that I said of, maybe I'm not good at this, or maybe what if they don't like it? If they don't like it, they're never going to order again. And then nobody else is going to order. And then I'm going to go out of business and all these things. That's at least what my mind sometimes do, and it drives me crazy because I have some other like mental health issues sometimes that I deal with that I am working on. So I deal with some OCD and anxiety and depression that I deal with. So I take some medication to try to tackle that. And so that makes it even harder for me in these situations of fear and self-doubt, because I am like, I take it so far. And then I'm like, oh, well, if this happens, then this happens, this happens, this happens. But I've had to turn that around and recognize the actual patterns of thought. And what is it, right? It's like, what is that specific thought that comes up for you? So this is an exercise you can bring yourself through. And this is what I do with my clients and my coaching sometimes, and is asking you the question. So first off, recognizing what the situation is the fear and self-doubt coming from somebody that somebody said, or is it coming from just your thoughts, right? And first of all, making that distinction. Number two, then looking at, well, what is causing the fear? What are your first thoughts that come up? If I say to you, customer just came and picked up a box of cheesecakes, maybe you had some difficulties in the recipe, you're giving them, or maybe you didn't have any difficulties. Maybe everything went perfect and your brain's just going crazy. What are the thoughts that arise in your mind that are causing the feeling and the emotions, right? Because when you get into emotion, and this is an important one to go over, and this gets more into the mindset stuff, right? And this is where the magic is, right? The magic is understanding like how we operate as human beings, right? How we operate, how we take in information, how we choose to like take that information and process this, all those kind of things. Because what actually really drives us, right? It's our emotions. We're all just searching for a feeling in our lives. All of us. We're all searching for a feeling, whatever that is. Joy, happiness, safety, peace, whatever that means. But that feeling, that emotion that we're trying to look for is a vibration in our body, and it's caused by a thought that we're having. So I'm hopefully not going too deep in the weeds on this, but from the fear and the self-doubt, that those feelings of fear and self-doubt, like those are opposite feelings, right? Of happiness and joy, right? Happiness and joy and good feelings are caused by more positive leaning thoughts. And then you've got your negative leaning thoughts. And the different thoughts are going to create a different feeling within your body. And so when you're sitting there thinking about, okay, what are the thoughts that I have about this? And then thinking about the thoughts, and then thinking to yourself, like, how does that feel? Like, how does that feel in my body? Where do I feel anxiety? Where do I feel stress? Where do I feel fear? Where do I feel self-doubt? And then when I feel self-doubt and when I feel fear, what do I do? And does that action actually help me? Or does it just make me feel worse, right? And there's plenty of things that we do to buffer away those emotions that we don't want to feel. And so that just gets into a whole other realm of, if you want to like grow in your life and grow a business, you've got to tackle these things. Because as I said in the beginning of this comment, when you get into business and you're opening stores and you're getting hundreds of customers and you're doing all these things, the fear and self-doubt don't go away. They always come up, but it's making sure that you are enabled with the tools that you've practiced and practice each day to be aware of how you operate and how you operate in the world and how you take in information and what patterns do you have, because every single human is different. We sometimes have similar patterns, and I think there's a lot of truth you all can feel as I'm talking about this, but we each got to figure out what that even looks like for us. That was a long answer. That was a fun question. So, you probably saw me really excited about mindset the first day and marketing and pricing and time management. And now with more mindset life coaching stuff, like this is the stuff that I just get super, super excited about. Like I get so stoked because like when it comes to just like strategy and answering questions, those kind of things, I'll tell you that stuff all day, all day. I know so many different ways you can do things in a business. Like there are so many different ways you can do things in your business. And there's not necessarily a right way. There's not necessarily an exact right path that's just, oh, that's what you do. Like it just doesn't exist. And so there are certain habits and things that you can learn to help you get there, but it's all your own journey to go through. And it's a huge thing. That's where my deepest passion is. And that's what I want to really help people with, right? And this is kind of, from this whole webinar, the reason why I created this, because what do people want, right? When you ask people what they want to make more money. I want to make more money. Of course I do. We all want to make more money. Like, and we also want to have fun in our lives and build a business and those kind of things. But overall, like we want to make more dough and we want to know how we can be more effective in the kitchen and more effective in our lives so that we can put ourselves into a position where we can attract money to us, right? So that we can do good in the world or whatever we want to do with that money that we receive. But money is all about energy. It's the energy that you put out into the world is the energy that you get back. I truly, truly believe that. And so if you're putting out positive energy, it's going to come to you. If you're putting out positive things, you're putting out that information. And one of my favorite quotes, before I get into this next question, we just have a few questions that are popping up. So I'm just going to talk about this for a minute. There's one of my favorite quotes that is by Walt Whitman. And I talk about this in one of my podcast episodes. But the quote is, be curious, not judgmental. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Be curious, not judgmental. And this refers a couple different ways. It's towards us as well as towards others. I love this, though, when it gets back to that last question with fear and judgment. So when you feel, or the first question, burnout, when you feel burnt out, when you feel the fear and the self-doubt, ask yourself the question of like, what's causing that? Be curious about it, because our brains are very naturally trained to just judge our thoughts and judge what's going on. But if we can just stop, recognize, and be curious and not judgmental of our own thoughts, we can try to catch ourselves. And that gets into something that I call recovery time, right? Of when something happens in your life that promotes a negative response, like what is your reaction to it? And how long does it take you to recover from that reaction? And we're never going to be perfect at it, but we can definitely shorten the time between reaction and recovery. We don't have to let something bad happen and have our reaction last for years. Let's react the way we're going to react, because sometimes we just react in the moment and sometimes we react in anger or frustration or whatever. But the sooner we can recognize the pattern of what's going on, the sooner we can use those patterns and create new patterns to help strengthen us, to help us get to that next level in our life. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share. How do you politely educate others when they are shocked or push back with pricing? Thanks, Brittany, for this question. This is a huge one that I have battled ever since the beginning. I think everybody has. And this politely educating is hard, right? Well, it's not really. It's just putting it across. It's just educating them. And, one thing that you can do to preemptively educate is by masterfully, like I like to say masterfully, but just crafting statements on your website and your marketing and your communication, because this gets also, well, two things here. Number one, if people are really pushing back with pricing, you can break it down for them and and you can like, hey, this is just how long it takes. This is how much it costs. Take it or leave it. And then that goes back to when we talked about pricing, that maybe the people that are pushing back or shocked, like they can find somebody else to do a cake. I know that sounds, and that's such a hard thing, but know your pricing. Because if you know your pricing, then you know what that looks like. And you can say, hey, and when you have your data, like we talked about, you can even have on your, I wouldn't put this on your website, but just communication with customers of like, hey, on average, and you don't even have to say an exact time, but you say on average, a wedding cake takes between, I don't know, 8 and 12 hours. And helping them realize, and then you can even, and maybe you could do, I wonder if you could do this in a really fun way, because like, I don't think people realize how much work goes into things, right? And I know that is because we talked about that the first day, but being able to show people just the cost difference. I mean, somebody at the grocery store that's preparing a cake for them is making $15 an hour making that cake. They didn't bake the cake because the cake was frozen. They didn't make the frosting because the frosting was in a bucket. They didn't do any specialty decorating because they just don't do that at grocery stores, right? Like you make some like a little bit of comparison and just educate and maybe, and that's something that I want to create some stuff around too, to try to help push out there. Because I feel like I might be able to do it from a disruptive standpoint, that I don't really have a cake business necessarily, but to really help educate people of like, this is what it looks like. Go support your bakers, like go support them. And this is why their prices are so high. Like that, it's just happens because, and this is a battle. This is a battle, all of you, that every artist-based business deals with. Pretty much every single one. Because if you really think about it, like people don't know how long it takes to paint a painting or bake a cake or like decorate a cake or any of the other arts like pottery, like all the things, right? But it's the art, it's that artistry that people are paying for. So that gets back to my other point, Brittany, is when you're building your website, I would look over your website and kind of decide like, okay, this is the positioning I want to come across as, and let's put some statements on there or some descriptions or fun facts. You could do that too. That's a fun way of doing it, where you could say, hey, you could have like a little fun fact bubble, or maybe this is a social media type thing where it's like, hey, fun fact, did you know? Blah, 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 blah. Did you know? Blah, 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 blah. Like there's a few different like social media type posts that I could think of that you could do that could put it a little bit more politely, right? And more from just an education standpoint, like, did you know, kind of thing. Because I sometimes see people posting things that are actually pretty rude towards customers and like making fun or like poking at this kind of issue. And yes, I get it because it's disruptive and it gets people's attention. But I always think about those posts and, do what you want, right? You figure out and do you, right? But I always wonder about those posts. Like, what does that create for the consumer, right? What does that create for them? Because like you as a business have followers, and some of your followers are your customers. So if you're posting saying, here's a box with all the ingredients, go bake your own damn cake, right? Like that's what people say on some of these things, right? And I don't know. I sometimes think they're funny. Don't get me wrong. I think they're hilarious, but I don't know how customers take that, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what that creates for people. It's just kind of maybe a funny thought that I just had as I was answering that. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful, Miss Brittany. Okay, anonymous question here. Any good ideas for getting sales with gourmet drop cookies? Have decently steady orders for decorating sugar cookies, but would like to do both, and not sure how to market the drop cookies since they aren't so special occasion based that people seek out for birthdays, etc. Yes, and I can't remember if I talked about this on one of the calls or what, but I'll talk about this for a minute, but I think from a gourmet drop standpoint, gourmet drop cookies, or just cookies, or any dessert for that matter, because yeah, you're right. They may not be ordering them for birthdays, but just make sure that or make sure that you have those front and center, and you talk about them with all your customers, no matter what. You always mention it. And maybe it's in your, like on your website, like, hey, welcome. We do decorated sugar cookies and drop cookies. Or maybe you say we do gourmet drop cookies and decorated sugar cookies. Just to put in there, like, make sure that everybody knows that you do them, because that's part of one of the biggest things when we get to marketing. And it goes back to that marketing day of really getting clear on who you are, what you do, and why you do it. That's what you're communicating out into the market all the time, consistently. Who you are, what you do, why you do it. People buy because there's stories behind a brand. There's stories, there's reasons why people do things, inspirational flavors, whatever that may be. But it's just important people know that. And I don't know what your situation is. But that's what I would say there. And then the other thing I would say from a gourmet drop cookie standpoint, depending on how much of a quantity you can produce, I'm not sure what your operations look like, if you're a home baker, if you rent, if you have a store, all those things. But if you're able to do these drop cookies at a higher rate and you're able to produce a lot of them, I definitely look into doing like corporate catering type things. So I mentioned this the other day in my Facebook group, my private Facebook group, that is the Mighty Baker Make More Dough Facebook group, private group. Go join that, because there is a chat in there, or a post I posted a couple weeks ago that is all about getting corporate clients and some tips on what you can do. And it's all around like dropping by some samples and those kind of things. But that's just another idea that you can do. But if you want your current, and that's the other question too, do you want your current customers, like everybody that's ordering sugar cookies, do you want them to order drop cookies, or do you want to go after a completely different market? That's another decision you're going to have to make, right? Because that's two different strategies. And maybe you just choose one and focus on it, or maybe you choose both and focus on them and see which one works. But that's what I would suggest there, because you don't know, right? You don't know who's going to be the customer that's going to buy those. So you kind of have to choose maybe a couple groups and say, okay, for excuse me, for test one, I'm going to choose group A, which is people that buy sugar cookies. I'm going to try to get them to order this, and then going to a completely different group and trying a different thing. Another thought too, and the thoughts just keep coming to me. So, and also, like I said before, a lot of these things just kind of come out, but based on my experience, and some of them might be amazing ideas and some of them may not. You need to look at them and look at the idea and kind of really kind of look through it and like, oh, would this work? Other thing I would say is, moving forward, if you want to get more orders of these, people need to taste them, right? People need to experience them. So another thing I would suggest is maybe for 1 month, or 2 months, or maybe it's just 1 month, or maybe it's just 1 week. I don't know what your volume of orders are like, but what I would suggest, give one free cookie, which with each decorated sugar cookie order. Maybe you give like a little baggie that has a free, 2 or 3 mini drop cookies so that they can taste them, and then put a little card like, hey, remember, next time you order cookies, we do these drop cookies and they are amazing. You got to try them. Here's the prices. That's another way you could do that as well. All right. Okay. Another anonymous. Any ideas? Any ideas for cheapest way to get a website up? Yeah, there are a lot of like free website tools out there that you can find. I would just look some of those up. Some of them don't have the best functionality, but you can do it. And like, for instance, like on Square, you can set up a free account on Square. And I think that's what I have mine set up. And I'll have to double check on this, and feel free to message me and I can follow up, answer this if you want to shoot me an email or something. But on Square, I have a basic website that they offer for free. And you can, of course, upgrade that. But the whole Square system is amazing, like with taking payments, invoices, marketing, like all the things. Like, and there's other brands like Clover and some other ones that can do that have those kind of functionality as well. And there's of course like a bunch of like free website type things, and maybe not, you're talking not wanting to do free. Another one too to look up, I'm going to type this in here. I think it's Blue Domain, BLUDOMAIN. This is where I built my very first website. I really feel like it's a good platform. It's not what I use now, but what I use now is like $175 a month, and it's like a whole customer CRM system, right? So it's huge, and there's a lot of things that you don't need that kind of stuff in your business, right? So when you get to Blue Domain, there's, and somebody just Brittany just put in something in the chat too. So if anybody else has thoughts on this, please enter this in. But you could look at Blue Domain. I think I paid like $50 a year for hosting, and like, $10 a year for the domain. And I designed the website all myself. And so you could get up and running in not too long. So I just try it and do it and realize that you're going to change your website a billion times. Like over the last 10 years, I think I've like used probably 4 different services. I'm finally on the one that I like. And I've probably redesigned my website like hundreds of times over the last 10 years, because you design it and then you're like, oh, wait, this needs to change. And then you change it. So, okay, we're going to go to one question in the chat first. And then go back up to here because somebody put, let's see. Breath is so valuable in bringing myself back to center, give my brain some oxygen. I'm not sure what that question is, or maybe Marcia, I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay, I do not have a business yet, but people are asking about ordering cookies from me. I can do Easy Cottage Bakery in Florida. Fun, cute name, but people wouldn't know whose the business is, or if they look for me, they may not find me. Okay, got it. Yeah, this one, I answered this one, I think. I don't know if I did the other day or not. I have so many conversations, but if I understand this correctly, if you're opening a bakery, do you include your name in the bakery, or do you just come up with a recognizable or a cute name? There's a lot of different thought here. I'm not a professional in this area, because a lot of it comes down to like, if you're going to sell your business someday. And right now you might not even be thinking about that. But like, if you name your business your name, like legally, officially, and somebody wants to buy your business someday, like they buy your name, right? They buy the name on the business. And so you might not own the rights to your name to use in a business in the future, right? But that gets into legal things and trademarks and all those kind of things. But I would look into that. But I would say create something that's just catchy, and also create something that you love, actually, more than catchy, right? I mean, obviously you want it to be catchy and memorable and those kind of things. But the bottom line is, this gets back to mindset too, and positioning and branding. If you yourself are not excited about it, then it's not going to come across in your marketing, either verbal or on your website, right? Like, it needs to be something that you're proud of and that you can stand in front of a camera and say, hey, I'm Pete with the Mighty Baker. I do blah, 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 whatever it is, right? It comes across in that confidence, right? Like, people notice that confidence that comes across. So I would look into some names, and maybe are there some values or something that you want your business to stand for? Is there a certain positioning that you want to put across in the market? Are you going after a more luxury client? Are you going after more mid client? Like those kind of things, because it goes into the marketing piece, right? Who's your customer? Who are you trying to target? What problem are you trying to solve in the market? And who is going to buy your product? And it kind of gets into that. Let's see, there's no more in here. Okay. Back up to Q&A here. We got 10 minutes left here. I believe I am qualified to get paid to travel and teach cookie decorating skills and designs at beautiful beach locations. Ooh, fun. This is my latest fantasy goal. I like it, Ash. That's amazing. Um, do you have advice for connecting with conventions and retreats that offer advanced skill teaching, speaking, monetization towards a professional vacationer? Thank you. Yeah, there's there's a lot of people, especially like in the corporate space, but especially like in the retreat space for like life coaching, um, professional mindset type things. You could possibly get into those kind of conventions and retreats too. That's a good question, Ash. I think that number one, I would define like maybe that goes in a different direction because you're talking about teaching cookie decoration skills and designs. The way that I took it, because I do like a lot of team building stuff, and so I thought to myself like, oh, you could do cakes and you could do like team building and teach some decorating skills, but maybe this is more I'm not sure exactly what you're, I guess, teaching speaking monetization towards a professional vacationer. Yeah. You know what? I would look into different like either resorts or retreat locations, because this is something that I talk to people about in the wedding industry too, is are you obviously in your marketing, you're trying to find your end customer who's giving you money, but sometimes it's better to team up with somebody else in that space that is already getting your customers, right? Like it's borrowing their customer base, right? I think that is why I think that's an area, if you like, that's kind of like future goals, right? Of getting that cookie decorating on the beautiful beach locations. But for now, I would ask the question, do you already teach the classes? Do you already teach small classes at home or at a location? Like, what does that look like for you now? Because I would start classes now. Like start teaching classes right now. If you already know that's something that you are qualified. And I would also too, you say you believe you're qualified. Do you love doing it? Do you enjoy doing it? Is it, and I would actually just do it, not necessarily at beach locations, but start doing classes regularly so you can get to be an even better teacher, so that when you get to this point where you're doing classes on the beach, you're just like, I'm here doing cake classes on a beach, and this is the best thing I've ever done in my life. And like, you could do it. Like, you could totally do it. It's going to take some work to get there, and it might look different once you get there, because once you start going, anyway, those are some questions that I would ask. And as for connecting with conventions and retreats, going to any networking type things, but if you're not in the area of where those are happening, just DM people, find people that you think would be interested in it, and put it out to them and see what they have to say about it. So Ash, I hope that's helpful. And if you have, further questions, please reach out. It's also something else we can reach there. And that's something that I help people out a lot with in my coaching calls. And that's really number one when I get into coaching with people. It's not just about like, hey, what do you need in your business? Let's do it. It's like, what are your goals? Like, how are we going to get you there? What are your dreams? What do you want to build? Like, what do you want your life to be like? Like, let's look at it. Let's figure out and how I can support you to be able to get there. Like that's huge. And there's a lot of fun things you can do with that. So thanks, Ash. Let's see here. Oh, I love that, Marcia. Yes. Okay. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. That's a huge thing that I've learned from my coach, is breathing techniques. And it's huge. If you're at all ever stressed, like seriously, Marcia, you speak so much truth. Like look up breathing online, look up different things. And even just sitting at your desk and just simply taking a deep breath in your nose and hold it and let it out. You do that a couple times and you are going to calm yourself down. There's a lot of cool little tools you can do there, because I just took a deep breath and I'm now, talking a little bit slower. I feel a little bit more calmer. So, okay, let's see. No. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Marcia and Ash, and people interacting in the chat. I love that. That is ultimately what I'm really trying to go for here. I'm trying to create a community of bakers that we can help grow together and help each other. So if you are interested in that, go join my Facebook group, because there's going to be some good stuff going in there. And these are the types of conversations that I want to have in there. I want to have conversations like this where somebody can pop in a question and they can say, hey, this is what I have going on. What do you think? And I can chime in. Other people can chime in and give little thoughts and things and resources, and we can all help each other. That's really what I'm trying to build, you guys. I'm wanting to build something like that. So build it out. And of course, I'll have all sorts of my own sets of programs and things that you can enter into and those kind of things. But I just want to create this in this industry so that people cannot feel so alone, because being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being a solo business owner, even if you have a team that you work with, is one of the loneliest places and one of the hardest things you can choose to do, actually. And I'm sad to say it, but it is. Like food business, any type of food business, regardless if it's desserts or food, it's hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy business. Like definitely not. If you signed up for easy, then it's not probably the journey you want to go on, right? And that's why we talked about before in the beginning of like, well, what does life look like for you? Do you know that you want to open up a bakery shop? And I would say, go work at a bakery shop. Go work at one for a while. Take a part-time job, go work at a bakery, see what it's like, see what the day in, day out is, see what their challenges are, see what all their hangups are, see what their hiccups are, see what managing a team of employees looks like, see what inventory looks like, see what slow days look like, see what busy days look like, all those kind of things, because that is a completely different world. And oftentimes that's where we're at. And we have this like fairy tale view of what this bake shop's going to be someday. And it can be that. Don't get me wrong. It can be that. But you've got to put the work in before and put in the foundational work in your business so that you can have a good, solid foundation to build on. Because once things get up there and get busy and stressful, that is when you've got to be like die hard and you're pushing through, right? And it's not an easy path. Anyway, but with that said, I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I want everybody to be clear on that. I want everybody to be successful, and I want everybody to do what they should do, right? What you feel like you should do and what you should try. For me, like I need to try things and I need to go through them and try every possible way it could work so that I know that I gave it my all. That's me. Everybody operates differently, but we can help collectively get there. Okay, Brittany, one last question here. Is it a good idea to have prices listed on your website? Would it weed out individuals who are more interested in grocery store pricing? Okay, I love this question, Brittany. And my answer to this, some may agree, some may disagree. My thought is not to have all your prices on your website. You can. I've seen it work for people. I've seen it not work for people. What I like to do is putting a minimum order. So saying, hey, I do wedding cakes. My minimum order is $500. So then if you know your pricing well enough and you're like, you know what, I'm just not willing to do anything that's less than $300 because it's just not worth my time. I'm not making money. I'm not making profit. So that's why you need to know all your pricing so well, so you can know what your limits are, right? You have your data, you have your pricing, and then you know what your limits are in there. The other thing, I'm going to address the second part too. I have something that will help weed out people and help really get the people that really want your cakes. If you don't already have this, people like on your websites, I would do this. I would have a little form that people have to submit in that asks a few questions, because then not only did they have to put in the effort to actually do that. So maybe it's in your scheduling a tasting when they get on your website and they have to, I'm interested in scheduling a tasting or interested in this. Like, let's do that as an example. Wedding cake tasting appointment. So I want to schedule a tasting. They fill out a little form and you can ask them in there. You can ask them certain questions. Say, hey, when's your wedding? What type of wedding are you looking for? You could even ask budget of wedding if you wanted to. You could even ask like certain things to just help. And sometimes like people will go to that and that web page and they'll be like, oh, this is just too much. I'm not going to do it, which is fine. Because if they really want your cake, they're going to go through that process. And maybe you don't like that, but that's just my thought. And also it helps you at an information gathering standpoint as well. And I'll finish answering this question, then we'll finish up in a couple minutes here. And if anybody else has another question, I'm happy to stay on here for like about 5 minutes if you guys have another question. But I think that helps weed out some of those individuals that are more interested in that pricing. Is the most simple thing to do is put a minimum price, because then they know it's all already communicated. Oh, I was looking for a cake that was like $100, but she says that her minimum order is $300. So there's no way she's going to be able to do it. So then, and these are strategies you can bring in as you're growing too. Because in the beginning of your business, depending on where you're at in your business, like you may just want to accept everything, right? And you don't want to weed out people because maybe you don't even know what you want to do yet, right? You want to like see, well, what kind of customer do I want to work with? I'm still trying to figure out what my customer avatar is. Maybe you don't even know that yet. And so for that reason, maybe you don't want to weed out people. But as you grow, which it sounds like that's kind of where you're at, and I might be wrong, that's my guess, is that you're trying to really focus on a specific type of cake for a specific type of consumer, and that you want to weed out some of the people that are just not ordering anyway. So I got to that point in my business, and I still offer custom cakes as an example. I'll give this an example. I still offer custom cakes, but I have a minimum order of $1,000 on my website. And I have a bakery a friend that has a kitchen that I rent from that I can make the cakes out of, but I don't do them very often. And I'm even thinking that I may put that even a little bit higher, because I'm really focusing on my coaching business, but I do very, big, kind of more realistic cakes. And so part of me is like, you know what, maybe I just say, hey, this is my minimum price. And if somebody wants a cake, they're going to order it. And if they don't, then that's fine. Like, I know my numbers. I know how long it takes me to do something. I know how long it takes to design and build and figure all those kind of things out. And so I can know what that minimum price that I can have on the website to allow me to be able to do that. So hopefully that helps out, Brittany. So, okay. Thank you so much. For those of you that are still sticking with us right to the end, I'll just be like a minute and a half. I just wanted to say thank you for all of you that have attended on to this webinar. I really, really appreciate it. I am just trying to help. I'm trying to put out information and trying to put out value. And of course, I'm a one-on-one coach. So those of you that are listening to this video, I'm a one-on-one coach in the bakery space, and I focus on mindset and marketing and pricing and time and basically anything to do with life that is intertwined with being a business owner and entrepreneur. Like, that is what I do. So if you need coaching and you want to see what it's like and want to know what that looks like, come join a coaching call. Sign up for a discovery call. Come ask a question. I can tell you what it's like to work with me, see if we're a good fit. Or just book a discovery call so we can work through a business problem for you and I can help provide some value for you. Or the other way you can really get to know kind of what I do, all the things, go to my podcast. It's Make More Dough Podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. Also, you can go and join that Facebook group on Facebook, the Make More Dough Facebook group. And with that said, thank you all. I love you all. I don't even know many of you out here. but I truly love you all. I just love people, and I want people to succeed. I want people to be able to find their groove, find what lights them on fire. What do you want to do in your life? How do you want to spend your time? What are you actually trying to build? Right? It's probably impact driven. What are those real things? And when you're asking yourself those questions, ask yourself the whys. Like, why do I want to do this? Why? And ask yourself why like 5 or 6 times so you really understand why it is that you want something so bad and get to the bottom of that. Anyway, you guys are all amazing. And like I said, with the recordings, I will provide those, but they probably won't be available until mid next week. So I have a big order on Monday and I've got to edit the videos. So you have to hang tight for, the weekend and a few days in the beginning of next week, but I'll try to have them to you, the people that have attended, that it's on my attendee record, will have access to these videos. So other than that, have a mighty day. And thank you so much for joining us. And this is Pete Tidwell signing out from my wonderful, beautiful office that you've been able to witness over the last 5 days. So thank you so much and love you all and best of luck. And remember, like I started out this whole thing on one more thing, is that cake is life. What I base everything on that I do on a daily basis to help me keep going is what cake stands for me. And that is courage to believe in myself, taking action towards the mightiest version of myself, kindness towards myself and others, and cultivating good energy in my life by surrounding myself with good, positive things. Anyway, you guys are amazing. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you later.